Hi, I'm Liz.
And I'm Rhea.
Welcome to Karma's My Bitch, a podcast about love,
sex,
connection,
abundance,
joy,
purpose,
peace,
and how life isn't simply the stories we tell ourselves.
So in our last episode, we talked about the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
Or stopping yourself from being happy, or whatever that crazy, silly title was. And today we are talking about walking away from misery. And it's funny to me that I think logically the episodes would have been inverted, no? First you talk about moving away from misery and then pursuing happiness. Mm. But as we know, guidance tends to do shit upside down.
Why?
Because you have to understand where you're going before you understand what you're leaving. That's their explanation. But neither one is necessarily past, present, or future. It's more just in your present state.
Yeah.
Okay. So misery, and why we're talking about misery today, is misery is the byproduct of our karmic themes that tell us that we are not good enough.
Yeah, because you're miserable that you're not good enough.
Right. And that idea, I am not good enough, will confront you pretty much in everything you try to do, or in most things do, especially the thing that matters most to you, right?
Mm-hmm. When we're in our karma, when we're living this like 3D shitty life, effectively, everything that we're doing is just trying to mitigate that fact. So whether it is, I'm going to buy the nice car, I'm going to marry the right person, I'm going to be in the right job, I'm going to follow the rules that other people look like they're happy, so I don't have to worry about being unhappy, or I've tried this for a bit and this made me happy, so that's what I'm going to do over and over again, let's say. All we're effectively doing is we're looking for relief from the fear that we're not meant to be happy, we're not meant to be in bliss, we're not meant to be happy to be alive, right? We're meant to, like, as you said in previous episodes this season, 3D was about survival. Mm-hmm. And so that is actually a very miserable fucking existence. And no one really names it as that, because if we were to turn around and go, guys, everything we're doing, our whole lives, it's all pretty fucking miserable. And all we can do is use our coping mechanisms to make it better. Whether it's drink,
less miserable.
Less miserable. Yeah. We're going to smoke. We're going to drink. We're going to binge watch TV. We're going to sleep. We're going to throw ourselves into work. We're going to give ourselves some kind of fake goal to work towards and say, when we're doing this, that's why we're good. We're going to look at, we're going to define ourselves by our job title, by our worth in other people's eyes, by the size of our ass, like all these things that we're doing. You know, if someone actually went out and goes, everything, literally a whole culture, people are selling us shit simply because underneath everything we are miserable. We are believing every lie, we are following every rule, we are asking other people to take care of us simply, and we are using the external to validate the internal, because we want the external to tell us that the internal feeling that we're miserable is wrong.
Yes. Or that it can be fixed, that it's completely fixable. And because we feel we're powerless, they're just going to give it to us. The answer will come. The solution will come.
But also there's a part of us that doesn't really think it can be fixed. I think it's a misguided hope.
Okay.
And I think actually if you define hope as our heart's desire, it is
as we
hope.
do, right?
Yeah.
Episode 9, season 1.
Yeah. But it is a heart's desire for us to not be miserable. Right? So we do hope that we're not miserable. It's just our minds tell us this is how we will actualize that hope.
Okay, fair.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of conditioning that goes into it, right?
Yeah. Instead of just hearing the actual undercut, simple truth underneath all of that, which is, I'm not meant to be miserable. But we don't think we're good enough to believe that desire. So instead, we spend our lives wanting to believe that desire, but not quite believing it's possible. And I think that's why we're talking about walking away from misery almost, because it's really, and the pursuit of happiness happening at the same time. It's walking towards the belief that we can be happy and leaving the fear behind that we're destined to be miserable.
Yeah. And one of the things that came up in the previous episode, which I'm understanding a bit differently now and thinking about this theme in terms of misery, is that when we give ourselves permission, it was sort of at the end of the episode, but when we give ourselves permission to be happy, to pursue happiness and not regard it as a selfish act, what starts to happen then is that we become aware of so many of everyone else's shit. Like, so as we've burned through and worked through what you call our shit and I call our karmic shit, right? Our karmic issues, it might be then, and as we saw since about, I mean, it was really up in our faces in 2020 and 2021, which was everybody's shit became everyone else's shit.
You have to deal with the fact that I'm upset.
Yes. My anger and my fear becomes your problem.
I mean, it's even as simple as, let's look at a breakup, right? One person breaks up with the other person. The fact that the person being broken up with is upset about it becomes the problem of the person who's doing the breaking up. Mm-hmm. But if you actually think about it, just for a moment, who benefits when two people are in a relationship and one of them doesn't want to be in it? The person, you're effectively dating someone who doesn't want to date you, which is shit for you.
Yeah.
Or you're dating someone who you don't want to date, which is shit for you. So actually, whilst someone staying in that relationship may seem like as if they're thinking of the other person or working through it or whatever else it is, actually, the selfish act is the kind act too.
Yeah.
And the thing is that we cannot, like, and I definitely have experienced this so many times, but we cannot
do share
manage other people's fears and shit as much as we want to protect them, as much as we want to remove it, as much as we think we have control over other people. It really doesn't matter what you do or what you say. The other person is going to think what they're going to think regardless. Every time.
Completely.
And every time they think that, it's going to be because of their past, their histories, their experiences, their memories. It's going to have nothing to do with how you're acting in the present. Yes, over time, when two people grow and you start listening to yourself and you shed your karma and all the stuff, then yes, maybe you can be more present and they can be more present and you can move on from it.
Yeah.
But really, your shit belongs to you and only you.
Only
no one
you.
can deal with it. And the same goes for the other way around. Yeah. No one could love me out of the fact that I didn't feel lovable. Just as much as I can't fix someone enough so they don't feel broken. It's just not the way it is.
No, it's not. And we want to be able to. And that is the empathy that we're capable of, right? But the problem is that our empathy, our ability to empathize with another has been completely manipulated. And so what we're experiencing isn't sort of the ability to utilize our empathy and extend it to others in a way that is beneficial, right? Or constructive. It's really, you need to feel guilty and ashamed for my suffering. Yeah?
Yeah. Because you're somehow, but it goes back to responsibility.
Yes.
Because somehow we have all bought into this lie that we're all responsible for other people's emotions. We're all responsible for
circumstances. Or circumstances.
We're not. We're only responsible for our own. And the thing is that very belief fucks us all. Because if I believe that someone else is responsible for my happiness, I'm going to blame them when I don't get it. I'm going to constantly resent the fuck out of them. I'm going to constantly be the victim.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I'm going to be constantly powerless.
Yes. And constantly miserable.
And constantly miserable. And also, I'm going to be, like, I'm not going to be able to change anything.
No.
If I believe someone else is going to be the one to make me happy, I'm not going to change shit. I'm going to be just living in my own.
Exactly.
But at the same time, like, we're not responsible for anyone else, but we must respect them. And I think part of this thing about, this energy for oneness maybe that's coming up, I don't know, you're the spiritual one, not me, but this energy for oneness. And we're starting to see, like, definitely as I've grown up and I'm starting to see myself and other people, I start seeing that we are all, because even though the way out is always personal, the way in is always personal, the way through is always personal, all the different things are personal. The steps are all the same, right? Yeah. Understanding compassion, understanding responsibility. Like, I know what your journey looks like because it looks like mine. It's just being expressed very differently because you're you and I'm me.
Oh, well said.
But that doesn't mean, so when I'm seeing someone else miserable, I feel it. It reminds me of how I was miserable. But the thing is that you do need to have a degree of detachment, being like, well, they're responsible for their shit and I'm responsible for mine. So whilst I can stand next to them, whilst I can make space for them, whilst I can hold their hand, their shit can't impact me because it's not mine.
Right.
It's not my problem. Fuck this is actually not just a fearless move. it's also an empowering one where you choose yourself.
Exactly. And sometimes it does take hitting bottom. But we have to allow ourselves that moment of honesty and truth when we hit that bottom to say, I'm at bottom and I need help. Because what's happening is that people don't want to allow themselves to hit a bottom, or they're there, but they're not asking for help. Rather, they're blaming you for not picking them up, or you should have known. And that is such an act of immaturity, right? That's what a child might do because they are, as you said, they're not responsible necessarily. They're still growing. They're still learning. But we have not grown into that level of, or we haven't developed that level of emotional maturity or spiritual maturity to get to that point of saying, in order for me to be responsible for my own healing, maybe I need a bit of guidance. Maybe I need some help, because that's where we're getting stuck. Effectively, that's what's at the core of this sort of global social issue that we're facing, is people are not asking for help.
And it's totally fine to ask for help. Of course it is. I'm not saying that your shit is yours and it belongs to you, therefore you're the only one who can clean it up. No, of course you can have help. I wouldn't have done anything that I did if it wasn't for the people around me. At all.
Yeah.
At all. And I know that, and I hold that. And actually that's, for someone whose core fear was unlovable, being able to look back and be like, wow, like people love me enough to help me was really healing. Yes. But they weren't loving me into believing I loved myself. They were loving me to hold my hand whilst I found out for myself that I loved myself.
And they weren't shoving all this help down your throat either, right?
No.
And that's the big difference, because what we're seeing as well is sort of these social movements saying, well, these people need to be fixed and this is how you're going to do it. I'm going to give the solution to fix this particular minority or this group or this issue. Which is why we still haven't been able to solve any problems.
Well, we're not solving problems because people aren't actually going in and being like, all right, well, I'm finally in harmony with myself, so therefore I can be in harmony with others. And so immediately we're fucked.
Yeah.
Like there's just no way out of it. But then that's why I think it's really important for me just to add, like, I will never turn down anyone who asks me for help, ever. I will always give as much energy and time as I can to do it, just as you did for me, just as others did for me. I believe that that's how we grow. As we said, 5D is relational. Being in oneness is about service. It's about teaching everyone and helping everyone get to a place where they shine their light. But it's their light. It's not
your light.
It's not a refraction of mine.
Yeah.
And that's very, very different.
Very.
So whilst people joke that I'm a professional enabler, and if you want to do something crazy, call me and I'll be like, yeah, go for it. And so you know what I mean? But like at the end of the day, all I'm doing is holding up a mirror so you can see yourself and holding your hand if that reflection hurts a bit. That's it.
Yeah.
So help is incredible. Help is key, but I'm not making your problem my responsibility.
Yes.
I still allow it to be yours. I just help you maybe feel a little bit stronger to deal with it. And those are two very fucking different things.
Very different. And it's because in 3D, we couldn't ask for help. Because if we did, we probably wouldn't survive.
And also because if we did, well, I remember when I did, it was a shit show. But like, because everyone else was telling me this is what you should do, right? They were actually asking for help and further taking you away from your autonomy rather than holding on to it. And to remain detached is a very difficult thing when you feel personally affected by someone else's shit.
Yes.
It really is. And I'm sure we're going to be dealing with this more and more and more, especially as more and more shit comes out.
Oh, completely.
Right?
Especially as more of us have healed and are entering oneness, we're going to be even acutely aware, like more so, of all those other energies, right? Because they're going to want the invitation into the light too. They're going to be like, I need to join you. How do I do that?
Yeah. And that's great. And I'm really happy about that. But at the
You're
same
like, I'm
time,
going to throw them a party and tell them
I'm going to throw them a party and I'm going to just, exactly. But at the same time, I'm not going to think that their shit is mine. And sometimes, look, I find it sometimes, when I will be giving advice, and then my friend will go out and do what she thought she should do rather than what she wanted to do, I'm going to be frustrated. You know what I mean? Or when I hear time and time again how X and Y, don't really like me, and then actually X and Y clearly do, I'm going to be frustrated, of course. But at the same time, I remind myself, I was the girl who thought that no one liked me when all evidence pointed to the contrary, because I had created that belief and I was determined without knowing it. I needed to hold on to my misery because otherwise I didn't know who I was. You know, we talked about the ego having these like kind of expectations of me. I didn't know who I was if I wasn't that girl. So I ignored all the very obvious evidence to the contrary.
Yeah.
So I need to know sometimes that fear can be quite debilitating.
Yeah. And that was, of course, why we had to talk about identity shedding is any ounce of victimhood that we hold remains a part of our identity until we can completely shed it.
To truly help someone come into the light is to empower them to do it.
Yes.
To remind them they are not a victim, to show them that they do have responsibility to themselves and that they can exercise it and that they are the most powerful person in their world. Because as I said many times, it's not like my world dramatically changed overnight and everything looked different. But my experience of it was so different that then as a result, my world did dramatically change and everything looked different.
But your world, and this is so true, by the way, Rhea, your world became different because you managed to maintain your integrity. And integrity means being able to hold on to yourself and maintain your own energy. And that's key because we feel like, the empath in us wants to kind of give away our energy or feel what other people are feeling or completely be there. But then that just kind of turns you into a doormat.
And also you end up picking up on I don't know, sometimes I'll spend time, a lot of time with someone and I'm trying to help them and they're not listening. And then I end up feeling icky because I end up feeling them. And I don't mean that in a weird way, but I almost become them to try and heal them. But then because no one's healing anything, I end up just staying as them. Right. And so it doesn't work.
No, it never does. You know? I mean, I can speak from years and years of experience. Boundaries are essential.
I just always believe the best in people. And I think I actually think that's an amazing thing.
It is.
Believing in the best in people. A lot of people cuss me to the ground about it. But I'm like, you know what? I do. Because if I didn't believe the best in me, I wouldn't be where I was, where I am. Believing the best in people is actually seeing their light. And I think that makes me really special.
Very special. And that is you being in your own energy. And energy is just that internal barometer that allows us to maintain both harmony and hope.
Okay, you've lost me. Can you explain that again?
Okay. I had to say it that way first, and now I'll simplify. So as we defined hope back in season 1, episode 9, seminal episode, hope is the expression of our heart's desires, right?
Yeah.
And harmony is the energy that underpins 5D oneness. Okay. And that's what allows us to be in flow, because when we're in flow with ourselves, we are in harmony. We are experiencing the harmonics of 5D, which is, the vibration of 5D in spiritual speak. And so we are able to maintain that level of oneness, right? I'm speaking with my hands here for anyone who's just listening. But it allows us to be up here, if you will. So when we are up here in that particular 5D vibration, and we've experienced that, and we have that energy, we're living in that energy, and I'll try to simplify this after. We're talking about a particular feeling, not an emotion. And a feeling is a physical awareness of our being and the sensations that we are experiencing. So as you've said once before or previously, experiencing becomes normal. So the more in now...
So the more you experience the same thing, the more normal it becomes.
Exactly. And that's what 5D is. That's what now time is. That's what integrity is. That is when we are ourselves so much, without compromise, without sacrificing integrity, without giving up who we are for a single second, is how we know who we are in that moment. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. Yeah, it makes sense to me because I'm imagining it for myself, right? In my karma, when I didn't believe I was good enough, I never did what I really wanted to do. I did what I thought I should do. Yeah. But working through my karma was effectively not doing that anymore and doing what I wanted to do rather than what I thought I should do, which allowed me to get through my karma because I started to see that I could live life on my own terms as me. Yeah. So that became normal. And so me being in my energy, me being in integrity is me always expressing who I am at every stage.
Yes. And so it allows you to be consistent, right?
Oh my God, I'm like boringly consistent. I mean, maybe my actions will always be different, but the inside is always the same, which is, what do I feel? Okay, let's just do that.
Exactly.
I listen to myself first.
Exactly. And so then you are less able to compromise.
Oh yeah, no, that's annoying but true.
Because it literally takes you outside of yourself. And this is really an energetic thing that I'm talking about. I'm not just talking about this sort of conceptual, mindset-y kind of thing or spiritual thing. I'm actually talking about this is what higher consciousness looks like. This is how I maintain my integrity in my life, despite all the bullshit and noise that comes through socials or the news or what's going on and everybody flinging out all of their shit. I maintain my complete integrity because I experience a physical awareness when I am not being myself.
It just feels icky.
Yes. It's like an out-of-body experience. So you just get this flash like, oh my gosh, that felt gross. Or that didn't feel like me at all.
And the thing is that as we talk about experience becomes normal, when we were in 3D separation, that experience, that gross flash, was actually our whole lives. That was our misery, right? That feeling of always being separate.
Ew, oh my God, I'm just like cringing at the memory.
No, but it's true, right? You were always miserable. The misery was the separation.
It's true.
So the harmony is the oneness within ourselves.
Exactly. And so here's the thing that we're having to learn to cultivate when we're in sort of this 5D oneness and we're working through, we're raising consciousness and vibration and stuff, is that we've always been quite separate from our bodies. Our physical bodies, I mean.
Yeah,
we're separate. We're in separation. You and everybody else, Rhea, to be fair, right? You are your experience of it has been very acute, but it's not to say that, everyone has. Our physical bodies effectively have been almost more so because they were always sort of the tools in which we've had to navigate this human earth experience.
And we thought we could manipulate them. To make them do what we wanted them to do. Exactly. So we could be good enough.
And so we've abused them terribly. More than all of our other bodies, they have borne the brunt because they're our physical presence on this earth plane, right? And so when I talk about this physical awareness of a feeling, which is effectively another way in which we experience our consciousness, that's really what is so difficult for a lot of people is to get there. Because the bodies have become so desensitized. And this is why you see so many people as they move into consciousness or higher consciousness, they change their diets. Maybe they're exercising a fuck ton more, right? Because they're trying to bring their bodies into a certain amount of, this is the one time I can use this word, alignment, because it needs to have that sort of optimization that it has never had before. Or it's never been allowed to have before. And by doing that is what enables that physical awareness.
Okay.
But it's not to say we have to do all of that in order to get there. It's often a byproduct.
I mean, obviously you forced me to exercise, but I have that physical awareness more
gun
of
to
an
your
inside
head
thing.
Yes.
Like my physical awareness is more of like an inside physical awareness.
Yes.
Like I feel like a tightness in my chest. I feel like my heart is angry.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it in any way. I just feel out of my own body. And I feel like, I know for me also, because the second that happens, my mind starts spiraling. It just kicks in and it starts going and going and going. And when I start overthinking, I know something's out of whack.
When I talk about this physical awareness, it will feel very internal for some, right? All I'm saying is so often, depending on the person and their experiences and their karmic stories and their childhood and their lives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they might be so divorced from their physical body that getting back that connection not only takes time, but it takes a lot of work.
Well, it's interesting because I can feel my physical body, but I can't ever see it. I don't know what I look like.
But nobody can. Nobody does. Body dysmorphia is much more common than people realize because we never see ourselves objectively.
Yeah.
Right?
Never. Well, no one can.
No.
No one can see ourselves or each other. Objective seeing is not a thing.
No. Right.
So then what do we do?
So you hold on to your space. We do what you did effectively, right? You hold on to your space, your physical space, your emotional space, your mental space, your spiritual space, all of that in order to maintain the integrity of your bodies. That allows your energy to remain within the single vessel of who you are, Rhea, or who anyone is listening, that is your energy and yours alone. When you do that, that is really all you are. You are just that energy. You are not anything else. So as you come into 5D, as you're living in that oneness and beginning to experience it, experiencing is normal. I don't know. How do you say it? I love that phrase. I want to keep using it.
I just say the more you experience, the more it becomes normal.
Yeah, the more you experience, the more it becomes normal, right? And we're not used to that. We have such group think that comes out of 3D. Everything that matters has everything to do with the collective. And we do. We talk about how our purpose is to serve the collective. But as you've said, you can't serve unless you serve yourself. And so we really do need to get back to, can I be okay alone? I don't mean alone forever. I don't mean outside of partnership. Do I know who I am alone?
Without someone telling me, as in basically without someone telling me who I am.
Without allowing any of my relationships to define it. Again, that's why we bang on about identity shedding, right? I mean, as we come into this world alone, we leave this world alone. And we are always going to face those moments, even if we have families and partnerships and whatever, and however they look, doesn't matter. Do we still know who we are apart from all of that?
Because I know who I am sharing my light with you. Yes. I'm not asking you for yours or giving you mine.
Yeah. And it almost doesn't even matter what that particular label is. Yeah. It's just we're in each other's lives. There is a relationship here, but we don't have to define it.
Yeah.
Right? Because the definition or labels creates expectations.
Also, definitions and labels just keep everything in 3D, right?
Exactly, because it's all separation. Yeah. So I had this moment at the end of my summer holiday. I had to bike to a shop to pick up something before we left. But I'm biking back. And I just remember like having this moment where I was crying. Mm. It wasn't even the sadness over, my summer holiday's over. But it was this weird awareness, this acute awareness that my life was going to be different after. And I actually still want to cry when I think about that moment and that feeling.
Is it different?
It's coming. And I knew it would come. And I just was so aware of it. And I was so aware of like where my life was shifting from where I was. And I felt almost groundless in that moment. I just remember having this moment where I was like, as I came in alone, I'm still alone. But I haven't experienced that in quite some time because I've been so busy, right? And I just had this like very weepy moment on my bike where I was just like tears streaming as I'm like biking from Forte around. I was like crazy woman with tears, like, you know. But it was such an important reminder that despite all the people who have filled my life, doesn't even matter, over the years, and despite all the experiences I've had, I'm still me, and I needed to confront that again in order to remind myself of who I was. Because for some reason in that moment or whatever I was going through, I had forgotten it.
No, I've had feelings like that. I mean, I'm the same. Like sometimes I think, oh my God, like this is who I am now. And I feel groundless because I'm like, what do you do when your life isn't about escaping the suffering?
Yeah.
Well, what do you do when you've walked away from the misery? Mm-hmm. What do you do?
And we're here to figure that out because nobody's going to tell us what to do. I mean, in that moment where it was like, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to be all these things to my children anymore because they don't need me in that capacity. They need me as an ATM and, other things. But it was just what we're here for in this particular lifetime. And the divine cannot exist when we're in a state of human misery, right? It's the antithesis. It just runs counter to the consciousness game. It is separation. So just as when the divine cannot exist when we are in misery, the divine cannot exist when we are not in our integrity.
Because again, that means we're in separation.
So we're here to figure out a few things. Who we are, and I'll give it, and I'm just going to give you the answers too, right? Who we are, which is the divine in body or powerful individuals. Why we are here, which is to raise consciousness and serve. And how we do that, which is becoming our most divine selves.
So basically you're saying who we are, we're giving ourselves permission to pursue our happiness and walk away from our misery and see that we can create our own lives. Why we are here to be happy because all our energy is mixing with everyone else so that everyone else is happy too. So everyone is happy so we can be even happier.
Yes.
And how do we do that? By figuring out what happiness means to us, by finding our light and then shining it.
It's very simple. Getting there may not be as easy as we'd like it to be, but it is very simple.
Yeah, it's like 100 and something episodes.
Fair.
No, 120.
Oh, gosh. Thank you for listening. For more information, articles, and inspiration, find us at karmasmybitch.com and at karmasmybitch.insta.
And if you liked what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review.